Hi, Eli, and hi, everyone. Welcome to this new episode of the Lightleaders. Today, I'm with Eli Martyr, who started a channel called the Freemelon Society. And just a little introduction before I introduce you about the topics that we've been talking about in this podcast, the Lightleaders, because the Lightleaders is all about helping the ascension of our planet, basically, and raising the consciousness. And in this podcast, there's been three values that have been really important. One is sovereignty, and especially in the current context. One is health and thriving physically in that physical plane, and one is spirituality and being connected to the greater consciousness. And what you'll find if you listen to the previous interviews with Josh X and with Brian Mirabella and now with Eli, and also the two solo episodes I've done, is it's mainly on eating fruit and thriving in that body and cleansing. But to me, it's very aligned because everyone I interview who is into that fruitarian lifestyle, well, first, they have challenged the status quo because it's not the mainstream. So that ties to the sovereignty part. Usually all of these people have gone into the rabbit holes of health and how we are controlling the society and all that. They obviously want to thrive physically, but also whether you want it or not, as a byproduct of eating more light food, light as it's not heavy, but also light as it's light from the sun, you get more connected spiritually. And so it has to be aligned. I'm yet to meet someone who's on the fruitarian path and who's very into the mainstream society or who's like not connected at all spiritually. So that's a parenthesis on how that angle we're taking at the moment in the Lightleaders fit into the podcast. And now having you, Eli, is super interesting for me because personally I've been on a journey of I want to be on fruits, I want to feel more connected, and at the same time I don't do it as an experience to leave the body. It's actually a very embodied experience where I want to thrive in that mind-body complex, let's say, really be at my best. And that's why I think it's very beautiful when some people take the path of connecting more with God while being less in the body, and that's their decision. But rather, what I'm inspired by at the moment is people, who can build muscle, who can be strong, especially as men, who can be flexible, who can have high levels of energy during the day and be sharp mentally. And I think that's Josh X, I think that's Brian, and I think that's you, Eli. That's why I'm super happy to have you on the show today.
That's lovely. Thank you so much. I know I couldn't be more excited to be on the show with you. And I'm always honored and flattered to be given a chance to speak with whoever will tolerate me. So no, it's great. Yeah, I really appreciate it, brother.
Thank you, Eli. So you started a channel called the Freemelon Society. I love the name, by the way. It's so good.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I always remember that process of going through different names and options that I could give the channel. And it jumped out at me. I was very into, was and still am very invested into research and secret societies and the subversive movement that has captured the world and the collective minds of everyone on the planet. That these groups, I've always been interested in studying them and just learning how all that works. And
awesome. Yeah, Eli, so we'll go a little bit more into the story behind that. And just for the listener, we'll get you, Eli, to share a little bit more about your path, especially leading to being more mainly fruitarian while keeping a very active lifestyle. And we'll also, I'll dive into questions I have on you also live in a big city. How does it work for you? And how does it work with your job being needing to be physically very active? So and talking about mobility, about exercising, and how the diet on fruits and being strong and those exercises can work together. So that's the main direction. I'll post chapters on the YouTube video like these people can go straight to the paths that interest them more.
Gotcha.
And before we go into you, more just a quick question: what are you grateful for today, Eli?
What am I grateful for today? That's an easy one. Just being here, being able to chat with you and put out into the world some just simple, constructive ideas about what it means to live in accordance with law, right? In accordance with divine laws that have been given to us that we can choose to follow or not. And what we're doing here is we're choosing to follow them and tell the world about what happens when you do. And so anytime we get to do that, it makes me happy.
Amazing, amazing. So yeah, can you do an introduction about yourself and how you got into the Freemelon Society YouTube channel and your past personally also?
Yeah, and I won't dwell too long on that because it's not as important because the information that we're going to be chatting about, that's more important. But I just the average guy. I was very interested in health, wellness, movement, and physicality. I grew up loving action movies and comic book heroes and comic books and whatnot. So I started my physical activity endeavors fairly early. Karate when I was really young, gymnastics when I was around 10 or 11, and I never stopped doing that. I still do it to this day on a weekly basis. And that gave me a good foundation for movement that I carried with me throughout my entire life. I picked up different martial arts on the way. So several years of Taekwondo, several years of Muay Thai. And by the time I got to university, that's when I kind of realized that I was developing a really good, solid foundation in movement skills. And I liked performing. I was a bit of an entertainer. I liked to make people laugh. I liked drama. So I took drama in high school. And, I just liked being in front of the camera and just performing. And so I realized that while I was in university, I went to university and got a degree in kinesiology and health sciences. So I got my degree in university for that field of study. But early in university, I knew that I wanted to get into film. I wanted to get into the film industry. So once I graduated university, then I started to use my skill sets, made a demo reel, and started to work slowly, different music videos, a couple commercials, and then soon enough started to get work in TV shows and then movies and whatnot, feature films and all that kind of stuff. So that's how it was for me. Now, in terms of my development into making the Freemelon Society, my YouTube channel, I was an independent researcher, still am an independent researcher, at least that's what I would consider myself. And I started getting into that type of research when I was in late high school and then throughout university. So like I said earlier, just studying how the world works, if I had to encapsulate it in a nutshell. And when you do that, you stumble upon all the relevant subjects and topics. You get into health and you get into what is omitted from the picture and how health has been compromised and vitiated over time. And that got me frustrated. And it also got me inspired because I knew there was a way to change the health conditions that I was dealing with, right? Not major health conditions. I didn't have, like terminal cancer or anything like that, but just, nagging things over time, allergies, sinusitis, that kind of stuff. And so I started to learn and accumulate more until I got to the point where I was starting to understand how health and vitality really did work. And once I started implementing those kernels of information into my life and started experiencing what happens, I had to tell the world about it. So I started up my YouTube channel and struggled for a while to come up with the appropriate name. And because of my past studies in just like secret societies and whatnot, I was like, oh my God, a society where we just tell truth that is not conventional, that the average person doesn't really know about. but empowers you with wisdom and knowledge and an approach to life that just brings the fullest out of life. Oh my God, the Freemelon Society, of course. So so that's basically just how it worked in a nutshell for me.
That's cool. And yeah, I like the combination of having some awareness and at the same time not dwelling into the more disempowering side of only looking at this is wrong and this is bad without like shifting the focus on first what's beautiful and also how we can thrive in that context.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? I'll just very, very quickly say in my past development, there were a couple of times where what I was reading was all of the dark stuff, right? All of the negativity, all the dark stuff, and some of the really, really, really dark stuff, like getting into the nitty gritty of just like what is out there. And there were about 2 or 3 times in the last, whatever it was, 20 years or so, where I had to just put it all aside, take a complete break from any kind of research into the area, because it was getting me sad. It was getting me depressed, man. Just knowing that I was part of this world, and these are the kind of monsters that are out there, dude. But eventually you snap out of it, right? You know, instead of just watching movies and doing nothing all day, it's like, okay, hold on a second. Not knowing or not doing anything about it, that doesn't help anybody, right? You might as well just keep going, keep learning, keep understanding the enemy so that you can do something about it, right? And but it did take me 2 or 3 times of just stepping away and just, oh no, I'm going to retreat back to the video games and the movies and whatever. And then you snap out of that. It's like, no, keep going, you idiot. What are you doing? So I guess the point is, it's very easy to let the negativity of the world get to you. And so it does take some resolve to just get through that and recognize that there is beauty as well. There's immense beauty in studying the world and human value, human consciousness. There's beauty here. So we have to embrace it all and then take the best, leave the worst,
Yeah, that's beautiful. And we won't spend too much on this, but very quickly, maybe I saw a David Icke book in the background when you were doing videos. Yeah. You have like 2, 3 main inspirations of people that helped you be more aware of these dark things at play.
Oh, geez. Yeah. I mean, there's lots. David Icke, Eustace Mullins, Eric Phelps, who wrote a volume called Vatican Assassins. Incredible book. Yeah. There's so many out there. Michael Tsarion. Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's lots. Those are just a couple. And it just depends on what subject, we're talking about. Then, you can go lots.
Yeah, well, that can open, if people want to open rabbit holes, at least.
Yes.
They have a few options already.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. What's the big volume, Bill Clinton's mentor, what's his name again? Oh geez. Bill Clinton's mentor. If you just keep that note, you'll find him, and he wrote a massive volume on just how the world works. John Coleman, and he wrote The Committee of 300, wrote a book on the Tavistock Institute. Any of these people, you can start there, and then you can go down a rabbit hole, and you'll go crazy if you don't keep yourself in check.
Thank you, Eli. And now for the inspirational part, let's say. I mean, it's always good to be aware, but I'm especially interested in your Fruitarian journey. And so can you share a bit more about your nutrition journey, and especially when did you start eating fruits? Are you like 100%, 95%, 90%? Yeah, how long you've done and what changes you've noticed?
Yeah. So I'm half Italian and half St. Lucian, and growing up, I was raised pretty much in a traditional Italian family. Okay, so I ate traditional Italian fare, which that includes everything and anything, right? The milk and the cookies and the, you know, and the lasagnas and the pizzas and all of it, right? Standard American, standard Australian, standard European diet. Okay. So I ate that way for a number of years with some limitations. My parents were completely in the dark. They did have a healthy orientation, but they had a healthy orientation without being exposed to really relevant information. So they made they made do with the best that was available to them, right? Or that they knew at the time. So it was like, you're not allowed to have Lucky Charms cereal, but you can have Frosted Flakes, that type of thing, right? So it's like, oh, okay, we're being healthy, you know, eating Frosted Flakes. It's not healthy. So I ate like that for a whole number of years. First, you know, big chunk of my life up until like, you know, my mid-20s, maybe. And then one of the first books I read was Kevin Trudeau's book, Natural Cures. I read Natural Cures by Kevin Trudeau. And that was a great first step, because at least it exposed me to the possibility that there is something more to health. And there are several things that we're doing wrong. And so that kind of opened my eyes a bit. I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing this wrong. I'm doing this wrong. I'm doing this wrong. I'm doing this wrong. Ooh, that explains why I'm having this symptom, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, so I started to clean up my diet a little bit. The first thing I did was I got rid of meat and all meat products. And that was a very easy step. That was a very, very easy step for me, because I had kind of embraced enough understanding to know that, you know, this isn't helping me. And so I just got rid of it. And that's all I can say about that. I got rid of it in a day, and that was it. Never looked back. It was very easy. I got rid of grain products next, or wheat products, I should say, all wheat products, wheat and gluten. And I started noticing interesting things happen. I started noticing, one of the first things I noticed was my flexibility started to improve.
When was that? How long ago?
Oh, okay. I'm actually really bad at charting the exact timeline. This would have been like, we're about 6.5 years or so into my fruitarian based lifestyle. Prior to that, I went about 8 years or so as a plant-based dieter. And this would have been in the early years of being plant-based so
like 12 to 15 years ago.
Something like that. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I'm surprised that I didn't keep a better track of the timeline, but yes, something like that. So yes, so it's getting rid of meat, getting rid of grains, like wheat and gluten, and noticed several improvements. You notice that I was less mucousy, less pimply, less acne breakouts, better flexibility without really trying too hard, a little bit less soreness, like muscle soreness, good sleep, dreams, started to have better dreams. So I was starting to notice some good changes. But I still had things like allergies, and I still had, you know, the occasional runny nose. I could still get sick every now and again. I'd still have the occasional cold sore that would pop out of nowhere. So my health wasn't perfect, but I kept eating the same way I was eating, so a plant-based diet. And I stopped going out to restaurants. That was another little development that I made. So everything was my own preparation, my own food preparation at home. So I was fairly healthy. I was getting to a place where I was starting to eat pretty much only whole foods, or a very, very small proportion of the foods that I was eating as processed foods, but almost never at restaurants, only what I could prepare at home and what I could get from the store. So I lived that way for many years. Near the end of the I'd say the vegan plant-based phase, near the end, I was starting to get a lot more refined. So only whole foods, simple combinations, lots of greens, lots of veggies, lots of starches like lentils, split peas, potatoes, sweet potatoes, squash, and then I would pair that with just a hulking serving of assorted vegetables, raw vegetables. That's pretty much how I ate for a number of years. And lots of fruit as well. So apples, pears, bananas. I was always a fruit lover. Watermelon, lots of melons. Always loved that kind of stuff. I would make smoothies in the morning sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. And I was feeling great. Always very physically active. So I should say my physical activity regime that never changed throughout the entire process. So from when I started as a kid till now, nothing changed in the way I approach the way I approach physical activity changed, but my frequency and that never changed. So I was just lifelong athlete. Okay. And so now it's been about 6 years, 6.5 years or so. And I made the change. I made the jump to the fruit-based lifestyle after stumbling upon the natural hygiene movement from the 1800s, mid 1800s, late 1800s, saturating myself with that understanding, getting into natural law, getting into spirituality and some esoterica and diet in that sense. And so that eventually convinced me, along with just my general basic intuition on what my body was designed to do, some very common sense understandings, and just recognitions is probably a good word to use. Just recognizing what you are and where your sensitivities align you with. For example, you just do a thought experiment and say, okay, if I didn't have the ability to cook food, right, what would I be left with? And in 2 seconds, you come to the right answer. It's like, okay, well, if cooking and food prep was not in the picture, I would obviously be left with what the planet provides that is palatable and tasty and approachable, and all those things that I can do with my own body. And fruit is the obvious example. So that didn't take very much convincing for me. Anyway, but I paired that with a bunch of book information and never looked back. Just kind of like that day when I went off meat. I started doing it, and I started to feel the benefits and the simplicity that it afforded my life. Oh my God, Alex, the simplicity. It really resonated with me, and I just never looked back. Right. And go ahead.
How much do you eat? Because I'm just a little bit of background on me also. I've transitioned more to a vegan diet 4 years ago. And as I went, I reduced cooked food, and I reduced things like tempeh and white rice and all foods, and also then the legumes, and to arrive about a year and 2 months ago.
Okay.
I did an iridology, and then I started doing fruits and 1 raw meal a day. And the past 4 months, most of I had more like 1 raw meal or 2 a week, because most days I was just happy just with fruit. And what I've noticed more and more, especially as I've transitioned to only fruits and even skipping that raw meal, is that I eat a lot. So in a way, it's simple because I only grab a papaya and eat it. But I end up maybe every 2 or 3 hours having like a good meal of fruits. Otherwise, I'm quite hungry. So I'm curious also how it is for you.
Yeah, and that's not uncommon. I usually find that I'm getting most of what I need for the day in a pretty small window. But I have big meals too. I will have, each meal is typically a mono meal, right? Or a very, very simple combination. Okay. So either a mono meal or a very simple combination of maybe 2 different kinds of things. But let's just say in a 3 or 4 hour window, which could constitute the window that I eat for the day, I might start with, let's just say a papaya or a melon or something, right? Wait a little bit, and then have another mono meal of maybe pears, a couple pears, or mangoes or whatever it is. And maybe that's it. If I want dessert, then wait a little bit after that second meal option and then have one last thing, right? It doesn't have to work out like that. If I do 2 meals in the day, it could start off similarly, maybe 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Start with a melon, and then later on in the day have a bunch of mangoes or some bananas, or maybe it's a tomato bowl, so tomatoes and some peppers, something like that. So quantity wise in food, it does depend. Sometimes you need way less, sometimes you'll just eat more, but it is typically what I can get in about a 3 or 4 hour window. I find that I'm comfortable eating in a short window, and then the rest of the day is I can just do whatever I need, and I'm always comfortable with that.
Has it always been like this, or has it evolved in those past 6 years?
Yeah, well, yeah, in the past 6 years, I definitely started off eating a lot more consistently throughout the day. I think everybody would start.
So yeah, that's what I'm thinking, and I know it's what Joshek recommends also. Okay, eat a lot and every 2 hours.
Yes.
And I feel, to me, in my current consciousness, and we'll see where it leads me, but I feel it's there's a 2-step path, which is the first one is more Fruitarian, going back to the candies of God, if you want, and that really makes sense to me. And that can be, for now, I focus on this, and that can be really big quantities, just so I don't bypass anything. But then I'm also interested in Breatharianism more, and how I think you've read also Man's Higher Consciousness, and this kind of how we can get energy from the sun and from the light, especially in the right environment. And when then in phase 2, limit the quantities or the time we're eating. So I feel maybe with time, I know in my consciousness, I'm like, okay, maybe I stabilize Fruitarian for 5-6 years, and then I tackle more getting my prana more directly from the light and the air, rather than still the middleman of the fruit.
Yes,
we'll see. But so I'm not surprised that maybe you could shorten that window while you were more established in that Fruitarian lifestyle, both for your body and your mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in the first couple of years, I would say this for anybody that's making that transition or who is ready to make that transition. I want to make that distinction, because for most of us, it will take some transitioning, and a transition period is definitely going to be helpful. I was lucky in that I was making a transition before I even knew I was making a transition. So I was getting, I didn't mention it before, but I was very into fasting. So every weekend I would fast, and that I think helped a lot. It helped prepare my body to be more efficient with food, because it was a routine. I did it all the time. So I would say that when we're starting, just get your body accustomed to the right food, and ignore everything else. I didn't pay attention to anything else. No calorie requirements, no protein, I left all of that up to my own taste sensitivities and how hungry I was. That's it. So that's what I would say. In that initial period, just worry about how hungry you are, and nice. And if you're hungry, eat. Once you're satiated, then that's it, right? So worry about that, get comfortable with that, and when you're comfortable, then you can start relaxing a little bit. Then you can start easing off. If you feel, okay, you know what, I'm not really that hungry, maybe I'll just skip breakfast today, maybe I'll skip lunch today. Okay, so now you can start playing around with that. But that's down the road. Get comfortable with your body, taking in the right stuff first, and then the rest comes later. So yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, it's funny, I've had even more resistance to fasting recently, because I'm like, okay, I've put my willpower into, now I stabilize fruits.
Mhm.
and sometimes a raw meal. But really, if I want fruits, I get fruits. And
Yeah.
sometimes I know I'm not hungry and it's an emotional eating, and I'm still like, okay, okay, well, I'll just eat 2 papayas. And then I feel a bit bloated because I didn't need them, but it's just part of the
Yeah.
rewarding and feels enough for now.
Yes. 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 And everybody does that. You know, we all do that. I do that too. Sometimes I don't necessarily need to eat, but you just do it. You're like intellectually, I know, oh, okay. You know what? It's almost been a whole day since I've eaten something. I'm not really that hungry, but you know, let's have dinner now. Like, you know, and you do it. Sometimes you're not, sometimes you just ate 4 hours ago, 5 hours ago, and like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna have some stuff. I'm bored right now. I'll eat something, maybe watch a documentary or whatever. We all do it. We all do
Yeah.
it. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it's just excesses. You just have to watch the excesses. You know, excess in anything is never good.
Yeah, and I've seen people go too hard too quickly, and then it builds a lot of resistance, and it can
Yes.
trigger a swing of pendulum the other way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so that's kind of just a general outlook of how I do it now. I don't really eat much in the way of the overt fats. So I don't know if this is something that you wanted to get to later, but as for what I eat right now, that was kind of the how and when. As for what I eat, it's mostly the subacid and the juicy fruits, uh, pears, apples, mangoes, bananas less often, far less often. Lots of melons. Melons are like a pretty good staple of mine. It can be anything, any of the sweet juicy fruits, berries, all your whole berry family. And tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers. You know, if I want the savory thing, that's when you're using a little bit of a combination of foods when you're eating
Yeah.
savory fruits, right? And vegetables, again, vegetables they are acceptable foods, but I just don't really make that choice very often. Same thing with nuts. I almost never make that option or make that choice. I'll tell you. So what are we? We're October. This
Yeah.
year, I can tell you, I've had nuts twice. So once when I was working out in Calgary away from home, and the other episode was just yesterday. It was Thanksgiving. And so I decided to make something fun. I've got a video that I'll make later.
Going
But I
wild.
just, yeah, so I made like a zoodle pasta and I threw some pistachios in there. And, just bring it with the family. You know, I felt very Italian. It was like this red pasta. So I was like, oh man, I fit in.
Yeah.
But that was it. So I've had nuts twice this year. If that gives you an idea of how infrequently I make that choice.
Mm.
It's almost always fruit all the time. Yeah.
Mm.
So and then very rarely avocados and olives never. You know.
Yeah, so you kind of, I don't know if you've read the 80-10-10 diet,
Yeah.
Doug Graham. Yeah,
Yep.
but
Yep.
he talks about the importance of reducing fat also, so less
Mhm.
avocados, obviously, and fat.
Yes, definitely.
Well, and just being aware, I think it's good that because you cooked at home, it's great because you knew what was going in your food.
Mhm.
Well, for example, here in Ubud, we're blessed because there's a big culture around vegan restaurants and
Mhm.
lots of raw options that are delicious, dehydrated crackers, all that. But I realized listening to that book that a lot of like a salad can be 70% fat, because even just a little bit of oil and those
Yeah.
seaweed not seaweed, but seeds crackers and all that
Yes.
would account for most of the calories, while all the vegetables would be very little in
Mhm.
terms of calories.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And oh, sorry. No, I was going to say, avoiding the really dense fats. It's not necessarily something that I'm at this stage that I'm doing intellectually because these books say avoid fats. Yes, depending on what you read, it'll give you ideas. But when you eat fats, if your body is starting to get cleaner, it will be more sensitive It will definitely be more sensitive to offenses that slow it down and stifle it and, and vitiate its metabolic functioning. And when I have overt fats, it doesn't feel good, right? You can feel it slowing things down. You can feel yourself heavier. You can feel joint pains come back. So a lot of people notice this. So it's just that and of course it goes away really, really quickly. If you only have a little bit, you're not going to notice anything. But depending on where you're at, you always feel a little bit less, a little bit less awesome, right? When you're on just fruits or high water content fruit, and even intersperse that with just periods of not eating at all, and you're just being simple about it, you feel friggin' awesome. Like you feel like a superhero. And then you introduce a little bit of a backstep, and it's like, oh, kind of lost that a little bit. But you're still fantastic. You're still great. Like, still going out in the morning and like sprinting and just doing whatever. So nothing stops you completely, but it's just you personally, because you know yourself, right? And if you're operating in a cleaner body, then you definitely notice it. So I avoid those things because they simply slow me down. And you won't notice how much they slow you down until your body starts to become clean, right? So that's the thing. It's like a gift and a curse, right? The more you chart this type of lifestyle where you're adhering only to the prescriptions that Mother Nature placed on your body, right? The more health benefits starts to accrue in your favor, and the more developments that you notice you start to make. But at the same time, it places you in further and further and further responsibility to continue making those good choices in the absence of bad choices. So, Mother Nature rewards you for doing right, but she also says, now I'm not going to let you just go off and do whatever the hell you want as often. Now you have to be responsible every single time, every single day. So it's like, oh, people might think that's a downside of the lifestyle, but no, it's not. It's not. No, you want to be very sensitive so that immediately when you've sinned against your body, right? And or caused an offense. And it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, and I can notice I'm more and more sensitive to having the right food, but also even being in having the right air to breathe and the right kind of people around me, to the point that I was thinking, I'm from Paris originally, and I haven't left Bali for the past 2.5 years. Okay. And I'm thinking, oh, I wonder how we do in Paris, for example, because it's very different frequency. And so I'm interested. You live is it in Toronto?
I'm in Toronto. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. How is it for you doing all this in a big city? And do you feel like it's the right environment? That it's possible? I'm thinking quality of air. I'm thinking just the environment and the people around you. I'm thinking quality of the fruits too, the kinds of seeds, if they're refrigerated and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. And I think that this is one of those things that if I were to move to Bali, move to the tropics, move it, anywhere where you're really in your natural habitat, then that's when I would notice the next shift in how I feel, right? The sun 24 hours a day. It's 24 hours a day. The sun throughout the year, right? The summer weather throughout the year. Whereas, of course, here we have all the seasons, right? Which is cool. It is actually really cool. But I think that I would notice the changes if I made that shift in my lifestyle. So there's that possibility. But as of right now, I feel that it works quite well. It's been pretty easy for me to live this lifestyle with no stress, with all the abundance, right at my fingertips. Whenever I want, I can get access to any kind of great food that I want. So I'm not deprived in any way. It's not difficult. Now, depending on what city you live in, obviously it might not be like living in Toronto. But I got to say, man, Toronto makes it very easy Very, 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 very easy. So it's a blessing. Like it's a blessing to have so much available to you. So I'm very lucky in that sense. Now with the air quality, that's again, that would be like if I were just to move out to the mountains, I think you would have to do that and then feel what it's like to actually notice, oh, okay, so this is what real air quality and breathing is like up here. And then you go back to the city, you know.
Even in Bali, I have a land that's up in the mountains where it's pure, and we have an ancient forest. And then when I come back here to Ubud, where I live, I can feel it's very different.
You can feel a difference. Yeah. So it would probably be something like that. But as of right now, I mean, I feel great. I feel fantastic. You know, I wake up and I've got good energy, you know. Get up, it's such a good feeling. You get up in the morning and the first thing you want to do is, you're not groggy and you're just like, you get up and I'm like, yeah, just shift right into like a handstand or something. You feel great, right? So it's good. It's really good. But yeah, if you moved into the climate that really was suitable, you know, for you, then your health would probably go on to the next level. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to ask you also on, because you're talking about always feeling so good, which is, I'm very happy for you. And I just, my journey so far has been overall, I'm happy and I have good levels of energy, but I have also crashes sometimes, which I think is part of it, and the transition and the detox. But I also know people for whom like I feel they've tried well and they're like, okay, well, I didn't have much energy. So I was also watching yesterday a video of you know, the vegetable police Kaiser? Yeah, who's definitely trying. You can't tell him, oh, you haven't really tried. Like it's been 12 years. It's very dedicated, trying all kind of things. And I've like, do you think, well, first, well, a few things. So first, I guess there is a transition period when there are times when you detox and you crash a bit and you still don't reap the rewards. Was that the case also for you on the journey before you felt like, okay, I really feel awesome almost all the time? And the second part would be, do you think that's for everyone?
Right. Okay. So I personally, okay, so we'll talk about like, is that detox, that detox period, right? So that detox period for most people on the planet right now, that it will be necessary to go through some kind of detox. It will be more severe for some people and less for others.
Like, for example, I feel like I need to sleep more. I sleep like 9 hours.
Yeah. I would say, you know, don't pay that too much attention. Just honor that. I would say honor that. If that's what Mother Nature is telling you right now at this part of the transition, just do that, right? I had to play that game too. I had to just surrender to whatever happened to me. And I just said, okay, you know what? I'm in your hands, and whatever happens, happens. Okay. I'll talk about that after. Anyhow, so for me, it was not too much of a detox. There wasn't as much of an uncomfortable detox process with me. I'll say that. Yes, there was detoxing going on, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It looked like weight loss. It looked like every once in a while just being a bit more lethargic, but not anything that's really stopped me from exercising when I wanted to. But that was pretty much the worst of it. There was, you know, a couple things here or there, maybe like a weird rash, you know, that came and goes away. I got some like dandruff for like 2 weeks, like inexplicable. I'm like, what the hell is going on? But then that went away. So not bad detox symptoms, right? Very mild, and they kept happening until they just stopped happening at some point, right? Now that process, again, for other people, it could be longer and more severe. Who knows? That's not up for me to say. That is completely in the hands of your body's intelligence and Mother Nature's intelligence. So how she puts you through the ringer, that's between you and God. That's between you and nature, right? but it will happen. But it will happen, that's for sure. Okay. And weight loss will probably be your first indication that things are starting to work, because we have all taken on and accumulated waste and poisons, and in the absence of doing the right thing, your body just doesn't have enough extra energy to be able to detox properly. Okay. So, and your next, okay, so the next part of your question, I know you mentioned our buddy Vegetable Police, right? And he's been working at this for so long, and it seems that he wasn't as successful. So you were asking, is this for everybody, right? So is a fruitarian, or a fruit-based, I should say, a fruit-based lifestyle for everybody? I would have to unequivocally say yes, right? In essence, right? We are all the same species. We are all, let's just, be very, very honest about it. This is common sense. All members of a species eat the same diet. Okay. There's no way to get around that very, very observable truth, right?
Actually, I mean, that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
With the rabbit holes you've been into, that might be even something you've questioned also.
Yeah.
Here I live in Ubud in Bali, and a lot of people are into a lot of things that are a lot of rabbit holes, let's say. And I had that discussion, and a friend started telling me, oh yeah, but we're not one species. And obviously it included galactic stories.
Yeah.
But so let's say at least in that more traditional history container, like we come from primates, and is that something you align with in general?
Well, here's the thing. Regardless of where we came from or what was in our past, if you look at what we look like and what our bodies are right now, right? If we from right now, that's really all that matters. Like, how this body might have looked like 8 billion years ago, it's interesting, but does it really help, right? It does. I'm not saying don't study, but what really matters is what you are designed to do right now, because that's what's going to lead you to the most obvious answer to the question.
I'm reading that book at the moment called Return to the Brain of Eden.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Great book. Yeah, very, very good book. Tony Wright. Yeah, Tony Wright. I had the book recommended to me as well, so I jumped on that right away. So yes, your biology gives you very, very clear indications of what you're supposed to be doing, right? Just like every other animal. So regardless of where we came from, because we can speculate all day, right? Lots of different theories and lots of different understandings there. So yes, we are all meant to be eating the same relative type of diet. Now, the difference between us and other animals, the thing that has interfered in our ability to do that, is because of human ingenuity, we have allowed ourselves to devolve by living a lifestyle where all manner of whatever has adulterated our bodies and our genetic structure over time. And it's caused these micro devolutions, these problems, these genetic imperfections, and it's caused a lot of damage over time. And so we've run into a place where now, because we have the intellectual capacity to do whatever we want and eat whatever we want by changing it and whatnot, we've changed ourselves and hijacked our own senses to a degree that no other animal has. So now we run into these stumbling blocks where we try to go back to where we came from, right? Come back home, right? We run into problems that other animals would not experience. And so so like in Casey's case with Vegetable Police, and maybe other people, now you might be getting into a scenario where some people will have a much, much, much harder time adopting a lifestyle like this. And you could arguably say that this lifestyle is not approachable for them. In that case, the the only real access that you have to a true fix, it's not going to be anything other than true fasting, right? Long-term fasting. That is real. When all other options have become unavailable, you've tried everything, you've tried all these detoxes and whatnot, the only option left is Mother's perfect infallible method. And it's the one that requires the most discipline. Yes, it's the one that requires sometimes a level of discomfort, but it's,
Are you talking about water fasting?
yes. I'm talking about water fasting. Yeah.
Would juice work? Or?
Yes, but not to the same level. Not nearly to the same level, right? Because with water fasting, it is a complete shut off of the system, and with no stimulation besides the water, obviously. And that allows your body to go into a state that is just simply not accessible when you are still eating, right? When you're still getting calories. And in modern terms, a whole crap load of calories. When people go on juice cleanses these days, it's not a minimal juice cleanse. No. It's friggin' like they are it's just all day tons of juice, right? So it's different. The physiological response to calories is just very different. So to really get access to that deep level of spiritual, mental, nervous system cleansing, nervous system repairing, gut microbiota erasing, and then to get all that, you need the real thing, man. You need like the biblical style fasts. And once you do that, and you are disciplined on the other end of the fast to stay true to just the simple and fine elements that we're supposed to be taken in, that will start to really change your body, right? And that is the best way that we have to reclaim some lost efficiency. But if it's not that, and you've expended all the other options, then you're really only left with fasting. And I remember Casey tried a fast, but he broke it really badly. He broke it with like eggs or something, and he had to go to the hospital. And I felt so badly for the guy, because he's put in so much work, and he's made a lot of progress. But that can cut the progress, right? It can really impair your progress, right? If you don't treat a fast with a lot of respect. Like the breaks, especially with long duration fasts, they have to be super strict, man. You can't mess around. You can't mess around, because you could cause damage, right? So the last thing I'll say really quickly, and then you can chime in here, is what our lifestyles have done to us, and what our parents' lifestyles have done to us, is we could have done actual structural damage to our bodies that make adopting this lifestyle a lot more complicated, where that like really hard structural damage, you don't see that in the animal kingdom. But because we have some people, this lifestyle can be not approachable. And you have to just tailor it and tweak it and make some moderations. But for many of us, most of us, we can, right? So that's for the individual to work out on their own.
Are you into dry fasting?
Yeah, I do dry fasting. Yes, I love dry fasting. I like both. I do both whenever I'm called to do one or the other. Sometimes it's a dry fast, sometimes it's a water fast. I'll use both as I feel.
How long did you go on a dry fast?
I think it was 8 days. I think the longest one I did was 8 days. Longest one. And then everything in between, 5 days, 3 days. It's really cool. It's so empowering, because you can do a dry fast for 3 days, 4 days, and feel awesome. Like it's just so cool, to go for many days without food and still feel unnaturally good. It's interesting. It's always captivated my imagination. And
naturally or supernaturally.
yeah, it feels like that, man. It feels like that. It's really interesting. So and then water fasting, the longest water fast I did was 30 32 days,
Oh, wow.
32-day water fast. And then everything in between, I've done a week, 5 days, 6 days, that kind of thing. So
Distilled water?
yes, distilled water. Yeah.
So you buy distilled water, or?
I have no, I have a distiller at home. I have a home distiller. So I have both. So my water, I have a distiller for when I feel like having water. I'll drink that. I also have a reverse osmosis machine on the kitchen, and that I can use it to drink. I can use it to soak and wash my fruits and all that kind of stuff. So I do have both systems running at home for whenever I need.
When do you decide to drink the reverse osmosis instead of the distilled, and why?
Almost never. It's almost never. If I'm in a pinch and I've run out of distilled water for whatever reason, then and I want to make like I don't know, I've got company over and I'm making tea. I'll say, okay, fine, yeah, I'll just have some reverse osmosis water. But it's nothing that I'm intellectually doing. I always choose to default to distilled water.
And why distilled water?
Just because it's the purest and cleanest type of water that you can get. It really, distilled water ensures that there's nothing left in the water besides H2O. And with reverse osmosis, it's very close. It's very, very similar, but it is a filtration process. So you might still be getting little elements of hard material, hard minerals that are not great. And I can imagine if you've ever seen a pipe system, like the pipe systems that run through Toronto, man, the stuff is just filthy. So there's something about filtering that water that's like, I don't know. It's you'd be unsure. Like if I went into your toilet and grabbed a whole bunch of water and said, "Oh, don't worry, I'm just going to filter this out," and in the filtered material there was crap and feces. Even the filtered water, you'd be like, I don't know, right? It's kind of like that, right? So I would just default to distilled water. The hard minerals, you can't really use them well. You need organic minerals to be utilizing, and you get that with your food. And so distilled water is what I would recommend. I don't drink. Like, I have no problem drinking water. Some people are fairly dogmatic with this. They say absolutely no water ever. You're a fruitarian. You get all your water with fruits. You definitely get way more hydrated with fruits. That's undeniable. You definitely are called to less water if you eat a fruit-based lifestyle. That is undeniable. Of course, it's true. So there are times when, like, I've gone like weeks and months without drinking a sip of water if I'm eating just high quality, high water content fruit. So that's happened, but yeah, I do drink water every now and again whenever I'm called for it, or called to it, excuse me.
So from what I've learned, there's 4 types of distilled water. One would be you'd have a distiller, artificially made. One is in juices. It's actually distilled water from what I've researched. One is Mother Earth's distiller, which is raining rainwater.
Yeah.
By the way, I have something to measure, and here in Ubud, I measured the rain. It's 0 particles per million. So
oh, cool. Yeah,
actually pure. And the 4th one is your own body's distiller, which is urine. That's also what I've researched. I was wondering if you're into urine therapy or if you've looked into it.
Yeah, I have, but no, it's not something that I've been into. And the problem with it is that regardless of how clean our bodies are, we are always filtering out metabolic wastes. And there are also things that we are picking up from the air that, regardless of where we live, you will always be getting in some sort of pollutants that your body would naturally, filter through and excrete into the urine. But, we found everything in urine. We find plastics, we find medications, prescription medications, metabolites, and pieces of
Brian Mirabella told me he stopped because, I mean, he had a conversation with his psychic who told him to stop, and part of it was because he still had parasites, and that the parasites, according to the psychic, recycles through the urine.
Yeah. Well, it's whether you use urine topically, right? That might be a different story. So, it can have good effects on the skin, right? People can use it to, to clean their face, to clean their, so whether you use it topically, that's one thing, but re-ingesting it, I don't think there's a way to get around the intuitive part of taking back in what your body's eliminating. I don't really think there's a way to get around that. It's doing it for a very good reason. And there's always going to be elements in the urine besides the water that you don't want to be putting back in, right? Even if it is just extra calcium or extra protein or whatnot, you've eliminated it for a reason, right? And it's just counterproductive. It's counterproductive. Very stimulating. It can be very stimulating, so people can feel good when they reintroduce it back into their body, especially if they're fasting, right? If they're fasting, they find, okay, they drink some urine, and then I feel stimulated. Oh, I can go longer on the fast. But that's because you're adding stimulation to the body, right? And you don't necessarily want that when you're fasting.
That's interesting. I was reading that book called The Water of Life from John Armstrong, I think.
Yeah.
And it's been a story. He's cured like so many patients of, you name it, the Himalaya, cancer, all that. That was from the 40s. But he was doing fasts with urine.
Yeah.
And so part of it was drinking water and drinking urine and putting compresses and old urine and rubbing your skin. So you could have 2 out of 3 healing you, which could be the urine on the skin and the fasting in itself. And then it doesn't mean that the third one, drinking the urine, was actually necessary.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, you see all those same things when you just fast, when you water fast. Your skin turns magical. It's so clear and smooth and whatnot. When you're on a fast, you find all the same healing effects with fasting, right? So is the urine necessary? I think if you're going to be fasting for a week, man, like it doesn't get better than that, and what your body wants to discard. See, that's during a fast, that's when your body's reaching into the tissues, pulling stuff out of the lymph, pulling stuff out of the cells, and getting them into the kidneys and then excreting them, right? You probably really don't want to be drinking your urine then. What if you've got heavy metals that have been stored there, that have just been sitting there doing nothing, waiting for the time when you fasted to get access, so your body could have access to these deep tissue toxins? And only when you fast, you start getting rid of them. They go into your urine, and then you drink them again. It's like, holy crap, your body might be like, man, oh God, I've been trying to get rid of this thing for years. Just drink it again. So yeah, I would be very wary about that.
I mean, we'll close on this, but from what I've researched, it's like the liver actually filtrates all those more toxic parts, and that goes in the feces, and then the part that would go in the urine, according to that, doesn't have so much of that toxicity. And there's like a guy I've been following called Chris Manley. He's done 6 months almost only on his urine, and he's working out every day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but they've investigated it though. I mean, they'll find anything. They'll find fragments of like birth control pills in urine. Like they find everything. Gosh, we're exposed to so many toxins, and there's a laundry list of them that you can see in urine, right? So I mean, the stuff definitely is coming out of there too.
It is recommended anyway in general when you're at least raw and mainly on fruits and without medication. And I've seen for myself, experimented a bit with it, and I started just peeing in a cup like a year ago and looking at it, and one day I had like white rice and even a bit of fish, and it was so cloudy.
Oh really? Yeah, just one day, huh? Just one day?
Yeah, one meal.
Just one day. Yeah, that's all it takes. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it's crazy, but it's a good place. It's a good place to be when you can actually notice that stuff, right? But
It
yeah,
definitely creates an awareness of what goes in your body, at least.
awareness. Yes, yes, yeah, definitely awareness. And you had mentioned something right at the beginning that I want to just like touch on really, really quickly, and it's something that I mention every now and again, and it's the feeling of liberation and just being empowered. And with this lifestyle, what happens is that it is very empowering. It's very empowering because it relieves you of dependencies, of like the dependency on intricate food preparation, right? And it takes all the complication and all the questions kind of like out of the picture, right? And you've cultivated this unshakable faith in the fact that you were not created haphazardly. You were not created willy-nilly. Your sensitivities, your everything was created for a very particular purpose. And then when you finally clue into that and you just follow it, it's just it's relieving. It's so relieving. It's like, oh my God, it was all this time, it was so easy and I just didn't really recognize it. And it's empowering because now you're just free, you're really just free. I mentioned every once in a while I work in film. I'll go into sets and I'll work all day, just working just as hard as everybody else, physically running around, doing fight choreography. I'll do it with no food, no water very often. And, people are like, how the hell can you just do all this, without eating? And it's just because you're free, right? You're just, it's very liberating. So quite an empowering thing. I hope everybody gets a chance to experience what that's like at some point. But yeah, I guess that's what we're here to do, right?
Yeah, amazing. That's very beautiful. I have a couple more questions on the nutrition, and then we can do a little bit on the exercise part. How are you with time?
Time. I'm good with time. What time is it right now? Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Well, quick one. Do you take herbs also? I'm thinking of Dr. Morse, who often adds.
Oh, I see. No, no, not really. I tried for a period. I tried a couple of the Dr. Morse herbs, but I mean, I would say no. There's not really much that I do in that capacity. Namely because I guess you just feel good. You just feel really, really good all the time, and so don't really have any kind of recourse to to use herbs for anything that rest or short fasting couldn't tackle. It's I always find if there's something up, then okay, just be really mindful of what I'm eating, give myself appropriate rest, good long breaks between meals, and that always tends to resolve whatever it is. So rest is always going to be the best way that you can access health and healing. Always. It's your body doing the magic, not the thing that you put into it.
Nice. And how old are you, by the way?
I'm 39.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And also, if you're bald, it's by choice.
Yeah. Oh no. No. So I started losing my hair when I was not a kid, but fairly early. Yeah, fairly early. And obviously I had a horrible diet, when I was when I was growing up. So whatever contribution that made, then that is what it is. But I mean, I have very bad genetics for hair retention as well. And so yeah, it's interesting with because I shave my head because my hair doesn't grow well, right? But it's a funny thing with that, because yeah, you'll find people who have the worst possible diets, like just absolutely awful. They destroy themselves and full heads of hair, and then you'll find the opposite. You'll find people that are super, super healthy and they've lost their hair, right? So it's a strange thing. I don't really know how that works, right? There does seem to be a pretty heavy genetic component to hair retention. But no, so I started noticing that I was thinning my hair in like early early to mid university. And then after that, then I started shaving my head.
Okay, so it's not due to the fruits, but the fruits didn't give you the hair back either, basically.
No, I didn't notice that. No, I didn't notice that. Some people do. Like Casey noticed that over at Vegetable Police. He noticed that his hair got thicker, and when he was doing like high fruits, and he did watermelon cleanses, and he noticed that. So a lot of people do notice that, but I didn't notice that. No.
It'd be interesting to see in time if that corrects it. That'd be a beautiful.
It would. I know it would be interesting. Yeah, it would be interesting to notice if that happens over time. Maybe it's something that I'm missing, right? Maybe it's just some level of detoxification, or maybe it's not a physical detox. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's something mental. Maybe it's like a deep-seated subconscious thing. Maybe there are things that you would have to work on spiritually, right? There could be any number of reasons why we as human beings we see these types of phenomena. So there could be any number of reasons, but yeah. But I didn't. But in terms of just diet, no, I didn't notice that made like a huge difference.
Yeah, and it's I mean, it's interesting that you speak to these two and that beliefs, because I'm always keeping in mind, to me, as we talk about how to thrive physically, that it's not all totally separate from the spiritual, and that's where Joe Dispenza and all this kind of work comes into, where it's yes. Of course, physically there's certain laws and rules that looks like they apply, and so we want to eat the right thing and exercise, and at the same time we're also gods, we're also infinite being, and we also bend to a certain extent reality with our thoughts and our manifestation and our beliefs, right?
Absolutely. So
it's always, as we talk about this, and it seems very physical and matter driven, it's always good to keep in mind the more energetic component.
Yes, exactly. We always have to keep that in mind, because we have different bodies operating all together, all in unison, right? So it's not just the physical. The other bodies, your physical, your mental body, your astral bodies, these are all part and parcel of what makes up you as a complete human being. And so there are influences coming from these bodies that, and some higher, that supersede our physical laws. And so the only problem is that we don't typically access the frequency bands associated with those bodies, because we're physicalized, and that's where we're more accustomed to operating. But there are influences that are coming from there that, if we can learn to work with, then it will affect your physical body. And sometimes it can affect it in a way that seems miraculous, right? So there's lots of unexplored terrain there, and that's something that's going to come as as human beings work to unfolding their conscious evolution. And that's one of the reasons why I like this subject so much, because we are so physicalized, we're very left-brained, just generally in society. With food and lifestyle, that allows us the most direct avenue to make changes that affect our spiritual bodies. And so to start and to kickstart this process of becoming more aware and becoming more in tune and attached with our other nature, our higher nature.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Eli. One last topic I'd love on the nutrition side is salt. I've watched your video on salt, and as you've been cooking yourself, I'd be interested, when did you realize salt was toxic, and why it is, and when did you remove it?
Yeah. So that would have been, fairly early. Prior to going fruitarian, I would say. And then, once I realized what I was doing was poisoning myself with all this salt. So this is maybe like a year or so prior to actually making the shift to a fruit-based lifestyle. And you notice the effects very, very, very quickly. Hydration is one thing. You notice that you need far, far, far less water. once the salt habit has been kicked. Flexibility is another thing. Your joints, how your joints feel, all of these kind of stiffnesses and coagulations, you start to notice them. They're the little changes that you feel when you remove this salt habit from the lifestyle. And salt is a preservative. It dehydrates. It's by its nature, it dehydrates, and it does pretty much the same thing in your body. You eat salt and it goes in the same way as it leaves, right? It's pretty much undisturbed because your body doesn't know how to handle it. You can kill yourself with not very much salt at all. It really doesn't take that much salt for you to end your life, right? Sailors have known this for centuries. If you're hungry and you're starving, the last thing you do is to drink that salt water. It'll kill you faster. It's just we can't drop ourselves down a trophic level. We can't eat minerals because that's the exclusive domain of plants. And when we do try to eat hard minerals, we run into problems. If we were, let's just play devil's advocate.
Just what do you mean by that? Because there is minerals in like a fruit juice or vegetables, right?
Yes, of course. Yes, but they're organic minerals though. So the plant kingdom takes the inorganic minerals and it works its magic and it makes them organic, right? So it takes them from in the soil, you have the hard minerals, those dense earth hard minerals. And then it's only plants that can eat them and then change them into an organic form of that mineral. And it's that organic form of the mineral that organic life is able to now use in their bodies. Yeah. But if you drop down a level beneath the plant and try to eat the hard minerals, that's when you run into problems. Now, if we could make use of inorganic minerals, what you would probably find is that you would have taste sensitivities to eating things like dirt and rocks. But Mother Nature didn't gift you with a sensitivity to eating dirt and rocks or trees or tree stumps or whatever, right? So we don't have that. And the reason we don't have that is because we're not eaters of hard minerals. We need to eat organic food. And so you get that whether you're eating plants, whether you're eating animals, you can get organic minerals from animals. Of course, I don't recommend that. But yeah, so with salt, it's no different than iron, right? I could give you some iron filings and say, hey, we need iron. Here's some iron filings. Why don't you eat them? Nobody would do that, right? We eat salt because it just so happens to have that salty flavor that we like. But really, it's no different than any other hard mineral. Like we can eat silver and gold in their organic form. There's lots of hard minerals, earth minerals that we eat in their organic form that you would never consider eating in their hard mineral inorganic form. And salt is the same. It's the same thing.
Okay, amazing. Thank you, Eli. And I'd love to go a little bit on the active lifestyle and tying it to the fruit diet, like how did it change your exercise, flexibility, and mobility?
Okay, I mean there are lots of changes here. Definitely, okay, in the mobility and flexibility department, those were pretty strong changes. Over time, as I removed more things from the diet, right? So I started off with the meat, went into like the grains, and then got into, the more high water content fruits. All throughout that time, start to notice that your flexibility and mobility and little aches and pains in joints that were lingering in joints, some you'd think, oh my God, I just got to live with this forever. And then someday you wake up and it's like, oh my God, oh, this is feeling way better now. Oh, that's feeling way better. So over time, that started to happen. And with my flexibility, which is very important, and if I'm working in film as a stuntman, I noticed that, oh man, I'm a lot more loose and a lot more flexible excuse me, and I don't get as sore as often or as easily. And I noticed that after I started living this lifestyle for for long enough. Physical activity wise, the initial period, because there's that detox phase, like I mentioned before, like we were talking about before. And I noticed that what happens is, because you're going to be losing weight when you start doing this, you're definitely going to be losing weight. That's almost guaranteed. And with that weight loss is going to come strength, guaranteed to happen, right? The diet's going to break you down. It's going to take out all the useless material from your body, and you just have to accept that. If you're at a place where you're ready to accept that, if that's what you want, right, then you can expect that to happen. It's not for everybody, right? So you have to determine what is valuable, what you want in your life. But for people that are ready to make this change, you may expect this to happen. And it certainly happens to me. And I definitely noticed that my strength went down, right? For those initial, let's see, a year, 2 years, right? Like not pushing as much on the bench press, not like squatting as much. Just my raw strength went down as my body was slimming down and trimming down, right? Now I still was exercising, don't get me wrong. I was still at the gym all the time. I was still doing like my acro. So nothing changed. It's just that my raw numbers, the resistance that I was able to move went down while I was in the detox stage.
For me, I felt that, and also my style when I exercise changed, which is not good or bad. I think it's good that my nervous system gets more relaxed. But even when I kept going to the gym, I would do more almost, which I think is better actually, even for muscle building, but almost qigong style of weight. So with lighter weight, going very slowly and with the breath, and wasn't so attracted to the really pushing.
Yeah. The way I approach activity also changed over time. I started to do less of the traditional weightlifter type of routine and focused more on just strength and mobility, where I was doing more perpetual movement throughout the day, like perpetual challenges, fitness challenges throughout the day, without structuring it as like workout time, destroy yourself for an hour and a half, and then that's it, right? Kind of just like moving throughout the day. Unless I go to a parkour facility where you pay to go in there. So you have to work out for like whatever, an hour and a half or so, doing acro and stuff like that. So okay, so initially, yes, I noticed that my body was trimming down and that I was not as strong. But then after a while, once you've been broken down and whittled down to where your body wants to be, now things start to change. You start to be able to make strength gains again. Maybe even a little bit of size comes back. And notice that I was, okay, now I'm starting to feel good and starting to feel very, very, very strong. I still to this day, if we're talking about bench press, let's just say, I still don't raw bench press the same amount of weight that I did before. I'm also not loading myself up with stimulants, like muscle stimulants, right? So that is probably to be expected. And I would never trade in how I feel now and how my life is now for the raw strength that I had when I was eating very stimulating foods. I would never trade that in. And I still retain a very, very, sorry, go ahead.
I was thinking about it. I mean, probably, actually, that could be a question, but I'm pretty sure you wouldn't get stimulants. You don't even drink tea or something, right? You don't drink tea.
I don't mind. Okay, so it depends on what we mean by tea. Like an herbal tea is fine. Like I don't have any problems with it. No caffeine. Yeah, not a caffeinated tea. So no green teas and black tea.
I was thinking. I remember back in the days, if I'd have a coffee, I would work out harder. So I was thinking, it would be interesting for you just as a test if you want to do one day, oh, maybe have a coffee
Oh, I
before,
see.
maybe then you get also closer to what you were doing.
I see. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that would be an interesting experiment. Yeah. I can tell you right now, I wouldn't want to do it. I wouldn't want to drink your coffee. Like, it's like, oh God, it's been way, I haven't had a coffee. Oh my God, I can't even remember the last time I had a coffee. Anyway, so yeah, that would be interesting. But what you do get though, after exercising, continuing to exercise throughout the whole breakdown process and, every day since then, is that the strength and the vitality that you do cultivate, it's a very natural strength, and it's indicative of what your body, without any undue excess stimulation, right, is supposed to be at. At least that's what I feel. So yes, changes that happened. Yeah, there was the breakdown phase, and then there was the rebuilding phase. And my flexibility from the very beginning, that improved. Mobility improved from the very, very beginning. Muscle soreness, much less muscle soreness, and joint pain and joint soreness, that all changed right from the beginning, right? So you start noticing those right away. And that's where I think it really counts. And then this, the raw strength thing, that took a dip, but then started to build back up later. So that was the one element where you noticed that with the detox, but everything else you noticed right away, pretty much. Yeah. So it's been interesting. And right now, like, oh, here, you know what I should say? My cardiovascular system. Your cardiovascular system improves considerably when you make this change in the lifestyle. And I don't consider myself a long distance runner or anything. I was never into long distance running. But what happens when all the clutter starts to leave your tissues, you can breathe with so much more ease. And that translates into much better cardiovascular endurance and fitness. I started noticing that I was going for, sprints or like short bouts of like really intense activity. And I was just breathing very, very, very well. And sometimes like without even having my respiration rate change that much. And that was interesting because I knew that I don't put that much time into like long distance training or anything like that, or endurance, like 30 minutes, 40 minutes of sustained cardio. I never really trained like that, but I noticed that my cardiovascular system was working much better. And so that is definitely something worth noting. And of course, that's probably pretty important, your cardiovascular health, excuse me. So lots of little changes over time that just lead me to feel that, yes, this is definitely something that is helping me, that is definitely healthier for my body and my mind at the same time.
Yeah, and I've seen on your channel you have a few exercises that people can have a look at also for mobility, and so you've shared a lot on that too.
Yeah, there's a couple. I should do more. There's probably more I can do in the fitness department on my channel. So that's something that I'll have to look at as well. But there's some exercise related videos that you can find on the channel.
Yeah. Nice. I'm curious also. Is there? I really like the simplicity of what you offer and of what you talk about. And I'm curious, for example, when I interviewed Brian, he was also very happy with something called marine phytoplankton that he takes. Some people
okay
certain kinds of detox, whether it's MMS or I don't know, mucoid plague, bentonine clay, something. Is there, on top of going towards fruits and that simplicity, is there something on top of that you feel is important to thrive?
That is important to thrive.
Let's say exercising and having fruits, but did you do, I don't know, do you have any like a kind of supplementation thing that you really like, or a breath work exercise that you feel is important, or a
Gotcha.
certain detox you did at some point that you think people should do in the on the path?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. In terms of what you can do with meditation and spiritual work and whatnot, that's 100%. That becomes necessary. Sorry, let me rephrase that. It's not that you have to do that when you go fruitarian, otherwise you will not be able to survive. That's not what I meant. I meant as a human being, we owe it to ourselves to cultivate that practice, regardless of where you are or what you're doing, because that will start to have effects on your physical well-being and your mental and spiritual well-being. So that's something that everybody should be doing. That's what I meant. But in terms of something additional to food, terrestrial land-based food, as a land-based terrestrial creature, no, I've never found I needed anything other than that. Fruit, veggies, when I want, which is not as often. Nuts and seeds, that's it. Those are my supplements. Those are my extras. That's it. Everything I have is there, and I don't usually have recourse to much else. There might be some very important benefits that you can obtain from marine plankton and whatnot. I've never found that I needed to go that route. I'm always a little bit wary of seaweeds and any kind of marine vegetation, just because our waters are so damn polluted that they are. I've heard them been described as like the kidneys or the liver of the ocean, where they're the ones responsible for just picking up all of the waste and transmuting it and discarding it, right? So we can pick up a lot of stuff from the ocean, or from the sea, from the seaweeds that we eat. And so it's just because I never know, like if I buy a product, and don't get me wrong, I've had seaweed, I've had nori wraps, I've had dulse seaweed, like I've had it many times. It's delicious, it's awesome food. So I'm not saying exclude it from your diet. I myself have had it many times.
But it hasn't been a major component for you.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not like a go-to thing.
Yeah. How about any detox? Like, I don't know, pineal turpentine, MMS, liver flash, bentonine clay, all that.
I've never used any of those. All your detoxing, whether it's water fasting, or even dry fasting, or juicing, like juice cleansing, just simple juice cleansing, man, you got it all right there. Like there's not much else that you need. Your body's going to respond. The juice cleanses work so well to clean your gut out, clean your system out. The water fasting goes deeper, and then you can experiment with dry fasting if you like.
I have a little challenge, if you accept it, for you before we end up, as we were talking about your hair and eating urine. If you accept it, like for a couple of months to rub some urine on your head and see the hair grows
and
back.
See what happens. Okay. Okay, we'll see about this. We'll see about that. Yes, maybe there's a solution there. Yeah, man. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you go.
No. I was just gonna ask you how you're doing for time there.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap it up. I mean, it's been amazing, and I know we could go for a while, but I just have a last thing around. So for now, you're on fruits and you're thriving on it.
Yeah.
You've also, got an interest in Breatharianism, and your experience with fasting. In some of the books, they say we're meant to live thousands of years. Do you think it's a path you're looking at, to stay in that mind-body complex for thousands of years and transitioning to a more pranic lifestyle? Like, is that something you're interested in and feel like you're going towards more?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I definitely feel so, yes.
Yeah.
It's the curious thing about it is how good you feel when you're not eating, at least in the short term. Like in the short periods, a day and a half, a day and a half, 2 days, let's just say, and you feel so damn good. You feel so damn good, and it's curious. It gets you thinking. It's like, all right, okay, what's happening here? Why is it that this period of not eating seems to restore vitality like no other energy drink or whatever else, whatever else we do? And it always gets me thinking. And then I really feel that we do have the capability to be able to, at the very least, live on far, far, far less, right? Far, 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 far less. And I think, there's that balance that we can strike between providing just enough stimulation to the body to keep it going, but not enough so that you're interfering with the life force flowing through you from the ether, right? That high vibrational energy that seems to ignite vitality. And we get access to that when we're in the absence of food. But I feel that we can get ourselves to a place where our tissues and our body and our minds become so efficient that they can get whatever they need from very, very, very little, and essentially live a pranic based lifestyle. You know what I mean? I think that's something that I've always been interested in working towards. And in the next several years, I'd love to explore that more. And just run more experiments on the body, see what happens if you take your intake down a notch. What happens? How do you respond, right? There's this hidden power within everybody where they can attain levels of efficiency that I think we just have more to explore. So it's going to be something that I think will start to be tapped into by more and more people. Like it's very much a growing movement, this kind of natural, simple, raw food spirituality approach. And especially the kids that are growing up, we have we have parents that are of the same mind, raising kids that start with this from a very early age. And man, that's probably going to be a game changer in the next couple of years, next couple of generations, right? So who knows where this will go. But in terms of me, myself, yes, it is something that I've been interested in. It's always something that I've had on my mind, going through the literature and working towards as I put in more years in this lifestyle. But I'm also not, how do I say this? I kind of accept the path, and I'm accepting my my progress and not rushing things. So I don't want to rush things. I want to kind of let it unfold naturally. And when I get an indication that it's very natural at this time to make the next step, then I'll take that next step. But I won't rush it because I intellectually want to fast track. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sounds good. Do you have any Breatharians you follow, you'd recommend to follow?
As of right now, I mean, no, not really. I've read and looked up. I've like Ellie Tom. I mean, Ellie Tom is pretty popular. So I have some of his books. Ray Mayor, all these guys. But if anyone's interested, I mean, I went into a lot of this with Genesis Sunfire. We had a bunch of really, really, really amazing interviews. I thought they were really great on the channel. And so there's no one really that I follow too closely right now, though. No, I should say, but I'm familiar with most of them. Yeah.
Mm. Thank you, Eli. And any plans at the moment to go to a more tropical country or living like communities where you grow your fruits? Is that part of the plan?
At some point, yes. At some point, yes. I was very close to having a home in Honduras several years ago, but the plans fell through, so I wasn't able to make it work. But I was so close. I was so close. Yeah, I eventually I think that's going to be part of the plan. Once I make a bit of a shift, because I mean I work in film, and so I like working in film, and there's only so many places where you can live where you can have a good career in film, right? So it's either move to the States. I'm here in Canada. You're looking at like Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary. Those are probably your three cities where you can have conceivably a good career in film. So it depends. I would have to make a bit of a shift in my lifestyle if I'm going to go live somewhere else. Yeah. But so that's in the next little while. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Eli. And well, first, I want to encourage everyone to check out your YouTube channel, the Freemelon Society. I'll put the links and all the resources that we spoke about today in the description of the video on YouTube. Yeah, your channel is amazing. There's so many experiments on salt and rice and little rabbit holes you can go into, as well as longer dialogues and longer presentations. Some of it I'm yet to go through, but yeah, I'm very grateful for what you've been putting together there on the channel.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, this has been great. This has been a great conversation. So I'm really happy that you had me on today. And yeah, man, I look forward to what comes next. If there's anything else we can get into in another one, then just let me know. But yeah, no, it's great. We're all moving through this together. We're all learning and growing together, and it's a good time to be alive. So I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, Eli. That was super valuable for me. And if people are still listening now, it probably was for them. And thank you to everyone who listened. Eli, I'll give you the last share for this episode.
Oh man, we thank you so much. Yeah, we covered it all. We covered it all. You know what, guys? Yeah, you just, I would say the best thing to do is just to live. Okay. How do I want to give away a good final thought here? Because we did cover quite a bit, but honestly, the stress. Don't let obsessing over diet and lifestyle cause you more worry than is required, right? There are lots of ideas out there. There's lots of approaches to health. There's lots of different things that are going to be thrown at you 24/7, right? Make of it what you will. Take from as many different sources as you can, as you're willing to investigate. Listen to what we have to say. Listen to what the other person has to say. Aggregate it. If it makes sense, if you really feel it resonates with you, then do that, right? Even if something that you're doing is not ideal, it's probably better to do that with just complete calm and passivity and no stress, right? Than to try and force yourself into some mold that you're not ready for and have a lot of stress and worry and guilt associated with it, right? That will run you down and that will never work. So even if we have high ambitions, right, always set simple targets for yourself and just proceed with love and grace, without stress and worry. And it's the progress, it's the journey that's important, right? So and just enjoy that for what it is. So yeah, that's I think what I would say.